So continue with our series, how to make everything. Today we're going to try Cinnabon. Right, so before we get stuck into our recipe, let's give the original one a try. Obviously, it's a Cinnabon, so on the inside we have cinnamon and sugar, and then on the top we obviously have a frosting, a vanilla, I think buttercream frosting. We'll get into the recipe shortly. That being said, smells delicious. Let's just give it a bite. All that cinnamon in there, sugar, very sweet. And if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure I can taste some lemon. So I have to bear that in mind for our recipe. I think it's fairly obvious to start that we're going to have to make a dough. So let's begin by pouring some milk into a saucepan. And we'll get that on medium to high heat. To that, we'll add some butter. I'll get some yeast into the mix. Do a couple teaspoons. We'll stir it in just before we take it off the heat and let it bloom for around 10 minutes. Now we need to grab some flour, about 2 cups, and we'll put it into our mixer. And to that, we'll add some sugar and a healthy pinch of salt. And now while keeping the mixer running, we're going to slowly add our liquid. So this is our mixture consistency at the minute. We obviously need to add more flour. So we're going to add around 2 more cups to bring it into a dough and bring it together. So we just took our dough off the mixer and it's sticky, but it's not actually sticking to my finger. So it's the perfect readiness. We now want to knead it on our surface here. So let's put some flour down to start. Perfect. So you need to make sure your surface is very well floured. Otherwise it will just stick everywhere. You can see it's a very, very elastic dough. But we're basically going to knead this for 10 to 15 minutes. So you can get all your frustrations out on it. You'll know you've kneaded it enough when you get a very smooth surface. So I can tell we're not quite there yet. So you can see the dough is very smooth now. That's exactly what we're looking for. So our next step is to grab an oiled bowl and we'll just chuck this in like so. We'll just put this to the side. We'll let this rest for around 10 minutes now. So while our dough is resting, we're going to prepare our sugar filling. Obviously one of the parts being sugar and then the other in the name, Cinnabon. We'll just give that a little mix. So our dough is just about ready. Let's oil the surface so it doesn't stick. We'll get our dough out onto this. So we want to start rolling this out. So let's just start trying to get into a rectangle here. Right, so just checking now. So I've got a sheet of dough. We need to brush some butter into it. This will help our cinnamon and sugar stick. Obviously, we want that to stick to our dough as much as possible. And now we want to take our cinnamon and sugar mix. And we want to cover that as evenly as possible. Starting on your long side, which is this side here for us, we want to carefully roll this into a cinnamon roll, since it's in the name. It's working quite nicely. There is our cinnamon roll. What we need to do now is divide it into all of our individual buns. So that's exactly what we're going to do. Just dividing this into relative equal slices as best we can. There's the roll part of our cinnamon roll. Look at that. That looks amazing. We now need to get a greased tin. We're going to use this cake tin, and we need to start placing them in. So we have a few we'll have to cook in an extra pan, but you don't want to crowd it too much. So there's our cinnamon rolls. What we need to do now is cover this again with our cloth here, and we need to let it prove for around, I think it's going to take around an hour or 2 maybe to double in size. That's basically what we're looking for. So we're going to set this aside and we'll come back when they're proved and ready to go. So while our dough is finishing off proving, we need to work on our frosting. So we're going to start with some icing sugar. We'll get that into our bowl. Into that we'll add some cream cheese. And we'll add some butter as well. And using a mixer, we'll cream this together. And since we're trying to make Cinnabon, I've heard they've got lemon in the frosting. So let's just get that into there. So we'll add a few drops. And finally, we'll just add a touch of vanilla essence. Right, so there's our frosting. That looks really good. Let's try it. Wow. That is seriously good. So I've just taken them out from proving, and you can see they've almost doubled in size, which is perfect. What we need to do now is give it a little brush with some butter, melted butter, just to get a nice golden colour on top of them. And we'll put them into the oven for around half an hour. Right, so we've just got these out of the oven, and I've got to say, they look incredible. Slightly overdone on the tops here. We had to wrap it in some tin foil, but apart from that, I think that looks pretty good. Of course, now we need to add our frosting, and it's important that you don't let this cool down too much before you add this. So let's get this slathered in there. Right. Let's break off one of our cinnamon rolls here. Look at this. Oh, that looks absolutely epic. It is steaming hot still. Oh my God, I'm so excited for this. Just as good as the real deal. You see, we've got a nice rise on it, loads of air bubbles, so nice and soft, and you can see it unwraps just like the original one. And since we made it here, if you want more frosting, just add it yourself. Look at that. This gets an easy 9 out of 10. Yes, seriously good. Comment what we should try next. Very cool. Yum yum.